It is with my deepest condolences to everyone because of the history of our country, what's been done, and not just the United States. I'm sure it's being done and has been done all over the world. This is global. This has been ongoing. And it saddens me very deeply to share this information with you. This information is public. And so I am going to share it to you publicly. Again, I don't like having to do this, but this is what I've been led to share. I don't like it. Eugenics, compulsory sterilization in 50 American states. American eugenics refers to, inter alia, to compulsory sterilization laws adopted by over 30 states that led to more than 60,000 sterilizations of disabled individuals. Many of these individuals were sterilized because of a disability. They were mentally disabled or ill, or belonged to a socially disadvantaged group, living on the margins of society. American eugenics laws and practices, implemented in the first decades of the 20th century, influenced the much larger National Socialist Compulsory Sterilization Program, which between 1934 and 1945 led to approximately 350,000 compulsory sterilizations and was a stepping stone to the Holocaust. Even after the details of the Nazi sterilization program, as well as its role as a precursor to euthanasia murders, became more widely known after World War II, and which the New York Times had reported on an extensively and in great detail even before its implementation in 1934. Sterilizations in some American states did not stop. Some states continued to sterilize residents into the 1970s. While Germany has taken important steps to commemorate the horrors of its past, including compulsory sterilization, however belatedly, the United States arguably has not when it comes to eugenics. For some states, there is still a paucity of reliable studies that show how and where sterilizations occurred. Hospitals, asylums, and other places where sterilizations were performed have so far typically chosen not to document that aspect of their history. Moreover, until now, there has never been a website providing an easily accessible overview of the American eugenics for all American states. This site provides such an overview. For each state for which information is available, there is a short account of the number of victims, based on a variety of data sources, and the known period during which sterilizations occurred, the temporal pattern of sterilizations and the rate of sterilization, the passage of laws, groups identified in the law, the prescribed process of the law, precipitating factors and processes that led up to a state's sterilization program, the groups targeted and victimized, other restrictions placed on those identified in the law or with disabilities in general, major proponents of state eugenic sterilization, feeder institutions, and institutions where sterilizations were performed, and opposition to sterilization. A short bibliography is also provided. I am going to click on each state, and if we see something that we want to read the information on, I will pause. I'm not happy reading this. I'm not, but I feel led to touch on this subject. I do. Our first state is Alabama. And let's make note, not addressed here is the controversial topic of sterilizations of Native Americans in the 1970s, which by some accounts led to sterilization rates of more than 25% among women of childbearing age. A student in my independent study course wrote a paper on this topic. Let's click here. The American eugenics movement in the 20th century began as a means of controlling the perceived increase in degenerate population and maintaining and protecting the hereditarily fit members in society from being overrun by the genetically unfit. Developed by Francis Galton, the term eugenics rests on the idea that intelligence, morality, and other behavioral elements of humanity are heritable traits just like physical traits. As a program to implement racial hygiene in the United States, eugenics essentially entailed taking the principle of natural science selection and enforcing it by employing allegedly scientific means. Avoiding links to the Nazi genocides and German eugenics program may be the foremost contributor to this deliberate secrecy regarding American eugenics. Furthermore, the Native American population is a small minority population and thus is widely underrepresented. The historical oppression of Native Americans and policies undeniably based in racist ideologies contributed significantly to their disproportionate sterilization through the eugenics program. It is crucial to consider these issues because there is such little existing common knowledge, not only on the topic of Native American mistreatment, but also on the American eugenics movement in general. I will now click on the state of Alabama. So we'll look at this chart, the temporal pattern of sterilizations and rate of sterilization. You can see that it went up, up, up. We're going to scroll down. They've got passage of laws. And you can go back through here and you can slow it down and you can read this yourself. We're going to Alaska. This state did not have a eugenic sterilization law. No further information is available. Good for you, Alaska. Arizona. Here's Arizona. You can see what happened. It slowly went up. Now let's remember that all these states, they had a certain different categories. If you were socially unacceptable, if you belonged to the wrong social class, that was more or less, yeah. We're going to go to Arkansas. Eugenics project in Arkansas did not result in compulsory eugenic sterilizations of mentally ill, mentally deficient, or otherwise. 1941, legislation for eugenic sterilization was considered in the Arkansas state. Because there was no sterilizations performed, there were never any targets of sterilization. California. We can look here and see in California. It just, yeah, up to 1983. Now that's as far as their data goes. We don't know what's happening after that date. We don't, but we're going to go down through here. And again, you can slow this down, and you can see it too. Yeah. And I'd like to say this video is not for everyone. All these places, yeah. It's okay. We can do this, you all. We can look. Colorado. There were no legal sterilizations recorded in Colorado. Good for you, Colorado. Major proponents. And again, you go back and you can pause this and you can look at it. We're going to Connecticut. You can see what happened. They just went psh. And I'm sure that these laws are still in effect. Okay, I'm sure they are. Delaware. This saddens me to look at this. The Delaware State Hospital for the Insane is also listed as one of the places with sterilization records. And they didn't even have to be insane. If you fit one of those groups, they sterilized you. Florida. Florida did not have a eugenic sterilization law. Good for you, Florida. You can see, yeah. Look, it says people, you didn't have to be just mentally retarded or feeble-minded. They were committed to the colony on the basis of delinquency, alcoholism, sexually overactivity. Oh my gosh. Georgia. You can see, wow, Georgia. Boom. Major proponents. Hawaii. There has never been a voluntary or compulsory sterilization law in Hawaii. The sterilization of feeble-minded and mentally ill individuals who were institutionalized was proposed. Look, House Bill 666, but this bill was never passed. Idaho. We can see. We'll just go down. Can you believe this is part of our history, if you did not know? History of the United States. Illinois. Look, a victim was a prisoner and was given the choice of going to prison for the crime that he committed or get sterilized. They said the prisoner was a pervert and a degenerate, and he decided to get sterilized. The judge offered the 65-year-old man the operation. Oh my gosh. Proponents. Indiana, and this, I did look in here, you can see it's highlighted. After passing the law, you see what they did. Boom. They were the world's, and listen, sterilizations in Indiana officially started in 1907 with the world's first eugenics sterilization law. But in 1909, a new governor, Thomas Marshall, put a stop to the process by threatening the funding of institutions, and the law was struck down in 1921 by the Indiana Supreme Court. The first sterilization law was struck down by the state Supreme Court due to violations to the 14th Amendment. Then a new law was passed in 1927 that cleared any potential interpretation of the law violating the 14th Amendment and was on the books until 1974. Though most sterilizations had already stopped by this time, there were several hundred pre-law sterilizations taking place between 1899 and 1907, carried out on criminals in Indiana State Reformatory. All vasectomies were done on male prisoners. Okay, you can see this. This is really, look, if they thought you were an idiot, an imbecile, rapist, insane, feeble-minded, they didn't care. Look, as seen in the law's explicit statements, those with various degrees of mental disability were targeted for sterilization, though the rural poor often ended up as a target as well. Poor whites from Kentucky and Tennessee were often singled out as disproportionately degenerate as well. If you were poor, you were disproportionately degenerate, especially those living in the back country. These groups were not only outsiders, but had been left behind by the developmental forces sweeping Indiana in the early 20th century. So their social stagnation could be easily characterized as due to innate inferiority compared to the rest of the state. Then another group was also targeted by Indiana's sterilization laws. They were the Ishmaels, a local community who lived in Indiana. In Stern's book, it was mentioned how Oscar McAuliffe observes this tribe and concluded that they were subhuman, referring to them as devil grass, since they were burdening the state of Indiana due to their way of living. The studies done on the group known as the Tribe of Ishmael by eugenics researchers helped show society why compulsory sterilization regulation was needed for degenerate families to preserve society and rid them of all defective traits. So they're talking about the tribe of Ishmael. Let's read about this This is the tribe of Ishmael. Look what they did. A group of degenerates found in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. Good persons in 1890, or 6,000 persons in 1890, 10,000 in 1921. Paupers, beggars, and thieves. Criminals, prostitutes, wanderers. Let me read what they said, you all. This is awful. This is my own state. Most of them are feeble-minded. They may have been found in prisons, jails, institutions, poor asylums, orphanage homes in Indiana for years, and some have become good citizens. The great majority are still mating and reproducing unsocial offspring. Oh my gosh. The tribe of Ishmael in Indiana. I apologize for this subject matter, but this literally has been laid on my heart. I was drawn right here. They said that the Ishmaels were composed of individuals and families from freed or escaped African slaves, Native American tribes, and Europeans who had escaped indentured servitude. It could be that from this diverse mix in the group of Ishmaelites, unique norms and behaviors formed which were seen as taboo by the rest of society. Ishmaelites were colorful. They wore colorful garments and embraced their norms within their culture, which Dutch. But all of these clashed with the norms from the lifestyle of mainstream society from that time. McAuliffe depicted this group as a parasitic race with a peripatetic lifestyle, and also viewed them as individuals who refused to improve themselves regardless of how much aid was given to them, essentially believing that the Ishmaelites were draining society from resources just to survive. For example, studies done by James Frank Wright, such as interviewing an individual called Kate Thornton. Kate talked about her husband and mentioned how her husband stole and he would often get drunk. Wright believed that almost every woman from Ishmael tribe took part in prostitution. Wright depicted many Ishmaelites as raging alcoholics and drug addicts. Over the decades that followed the discovery of the Ishmael tribe, this group began to symbolize the undeserving poor, whom were physically and mentally degenerative. The studies done by McAuliffe and his associates made Ishmael tribe as their primary evidence against the dangers of growing epidemic of feeble-mindedness and other social problems. This group was used to convince the U.S. Congress to implement the Immigration Restriction Act of 1924 to protect American society from degenerate wishing to enter the U.S. Traits of the Ishmael tribe mentioned above is what eugenic researchers use to make their case of the requirements for compulsory sterilization and also help the politician in the state of Indiana to pass the first sterilization law in the country in order to protect humanity from degeneration. In 1933, the tribe of Ishmael and the findings based on this group were presented as examples of the dangers of human societies that human society would face if individuals with undesirable traits were unregulated at the Eugenics exhibit at the Chicago World Fair. Pictures and posters like the one below were used as evidence to depict the Ishmaelites as an uncivilized community. Evidence presented at the World Fair depicted the community living style to be research done on family lineage, and the potential that the community member of the Ishmael tribe carried the various defective traits. So this evidence that was presented at the World Fair, okay, this is what it's done. Okay. Gosh. They searched for the family lineage and the potential that community members of the Ishmael tribe carried various defective traits. I'm sorry, this is a long video, you all. This makes me upset. It really does. I had no idea that they did stuff like this just because they could. Just because they could. Iowa. You can see what they've done. Just think, they had buildings specifically for sterilization. Oh, crud. That's about right. Perhaps it's best that I accidentally closed out that page. This video does not need to be long at all. You get the point. There were, and there still are, people who practice this type of decision making against humanity. They are the ones who determine who is fit and who is not fit. Is it morally right? To them, they feel that it's morally right. But to the rest of humanity, who are their subjects, we feel it's not morally right. It's morally wrong. So with that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello from my heart to yours. Love you. And please give this video a thumbs up. If you did not know that there were sterilization laws in place, you do know now. And I would encourage you, wherever you're at in any part of the world, type in eugenics, sterilization. See what you come up with. You probably won't be surprised now. It is saddening. It's very sad. Thank you.